Saturday mornings are supposed to be quiet. You know, the kind where the world's barely awake and you can actually hear yourself think. But mine started with the sound of metal scraping across my roof. For a second, I figured maybe a bird had gotten ambitious, or maybe a branch finally gave up the ghost. But no, when I stepped outside in my pajamas and looked up, there was a ladder propped against my garage, and this woman, wearing a sun hat like she was about to star in a gardening commercial, rolling thick, gray paint right across my solar panels. My solar panels, thousands of dollars in green energy tech, being slathered over like she was priming a fence. I stood there for a full 3 seconds, brain just spinning, because this was not how normal people started the weekend. She looked down, face pinched in this expression like she was the queen of the cul-de-sac, and she goes, "These shiny things are ruining the neighborhood's aesthetic." The HOA voted on it. That was my first face-to-face with Karen, the newly minted, self-appointed HOA president, whose favorite word was uniformity. She wasn't just painting my panels out of spite. Not yet. It was about her vision, you know? She wanted the whole street to look like the background of a toy commercial, every roof the same, every garden bed squared off, and my modern panels just wrecked her little colonial fantasy. I was too stunned to yell. I just watched as all that sunlight potential got smothered under Home Depot's best latex gray. When I finally found my voice, I shouted, "You can't paint those. That's private property." She didn't even pause, just called down, "Exterior modifications require approval. You never submitted a color palette." Like that was the only thing standing between my house and chaos. I whipped out my phone and started recording, her finishing the last panel, smug as you please, then climbing down and walking off to her spotless white SUV like she'd just done me a favor. Cops showed up 20 minutes later, after she'd wrangled 2 other retirees from the HOA board as backup, both nodding solemnly as she explained she was restoring neighborhood standards. The officer was polite, but didn't do much. "Civil dispute," he shrugged. Karen smiled like she'd just won the Super Bowl of pettiness. I filed a property damage report, emailed the HOA, and braced myself. Her reply came quick. "The HOA is not responsible for violations rectified for the common good." Rectified for the common good. That phrase rattled around in my skull for days. When I finally climbed up there myself, the paint was baked on solid, the panels couldn't absorb a lick of sunlight, and my next electric bill could have powered a small casino. Karen's house, right across from mine, lit up like a cruise ship every night. Then, a weird thing happened. My solar monitoring app started showing a little power draw, not enough to power a house, but enough to be suspicious. I double-checked everything, and the diagnostics showed my energy was being siphoned to a nearby address. You guessed it, Karen's. I called the solar company. The tech they sent up spent an hour poking around, then came down shaking his head. "Someone spliced into your conduit. The cable runs underground, to your neighbor's house." Now, a sane person might have lost it then and there, but the tech said, "Document everything." So I did. I took photos, logged readings, and spent the night switching on appliances and watching Karen's outdoor lights flicker in perfect sync. The next morning, I strolled across the street, folder in hand, smile fixed, while she trimmed her hedges like she was posing for Better Homes and Gardens. "Karen," I said, "your house is pulling power from my panels." She didn't miss a beat. "Oh, that's not possible. Yours aren't even working." I showed her the evidence, and her smile wavered just a bit. "Maybe the contractor messed up. You should be grateful I didn't report you for noncompliance." She was actually threatening to press charges on me. So I called the utility company, the county inspector, and my buddy Mark, who happens to be a lawyer. Mark replied instantly, "That's felony power theft. Don't touch a thing." The utility sent an investigator. He traced the splice directly to Karen's breaker panel. "I've seen cable theft before," he said, "but solar? That's a first." They cut her line and handed her a violation notice. I thought that would be the end, but Karen was just getting started. That night, she showed up in my driveway, clipboard in hand, flanked by her loyalists, slapping me with a $1,200 HOA fine for unauthorized solar infrastructure. I laughed, couldn't help it. "You stole my power," I told her. Her face barely twitched. "You're destabilizing community harmony," she shot back. So began our Cold War. My weapon? Documentation and patience. Hers? Control and the ability to twist rules until they squeaked. I filed a formal complaint with the State Energy Commission, attached every photo, every report, every reading. That's when my app pinged, a new surge. The paint was cracking from the heat, sunlight bleeding through, my system flickering back to life. The irony was thick. Her sabotage was failing, and with the next inspection, her illegal connection would be right there, out in the open. 2 days later, the utility crew rolled up with cones and hazard lights, and the neighborhood curtains quivered like it was Christmas. Karen stormed outside, sunglasses and silk blouse, voice at full volume. The texts were all business. "Ma'am, we're here to investigate illegal power usage." Her jaw dropped, then clenched. I watched from my lawn, coffee in hand, recording every second. "Mr. Alvarez," my neighbor, whispered, "she's been harassing everyone for months. You finally got her." I just nodded. "Not yet." The text found the splice, plain as day. "Whoever did this wasn't subtle," one muttered. Karen insisted she'd never even wired a lamp, tried to blame the solar company. The tech pointed out the cheap hardware store clamp, the mismatched insulation. This was an amateur job. The utility handed her an official notice, full inspection, possible $15,000 fine. Karen spun around, eyes sharp as razors. "You did this. You set me up." I shrugged. "You painted my panels. You tapped my line. The pros are just doing their job." She stomped off, vowing to lawyer up. That night, a mass email went out. Emergency HOA meeting. Effective immediately, a vote to remove all non-conforming energy devices. She wanted my panels gone. Friday night, community center, folding chairs, that classic old carpet smell. I came prepared, laptop, videos, utility reports. The place was packed. Karen opened with her usual speech about disruptive elements. I stood up, played the video of her vandalizing my panels, then the tech uncovering the wire to her house. You could hear the air change. Dennis, the treasurer, finally said, "Karen, this looks bad. We can't ignore this." She tried one last power play. Then I resigned, slammed her clipboard, and stormed out. You could feel the relief in the room. Neighbors thanked me. Dennis promised reimbursement for the damage. For a moment, it felt like the storm was over. But Karen wasn't done. Next morning, I got a thick envelope taped to my door, a cease and desist from her new lawyer, whose office was in a strip mall, accusing me of harassment, demanding I remove all mentions online. I sent it to Mark, who nearly fell out of his chair laughing. "This isn't even properly formatted. Let's respond the right way." That same week, the utilities report became public record. The local news ran with it. HOA president investigated for solar power theft. Suddenly, everyone knew. Karen's SUV vanished for a few days. Word was she was hiding at her sister's place. When she came back, she was brittle. One night, she showed up at my door with a box of extension cables and a junction clamp, the kind used in the splice. "Consider it closure," she said, voice flat. "You've made your point. Everyone hates me. Congratulations." For a second, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. For a few weeks, things were calm. My panels got cleaned and restored. My electric bill dropped back to zero. Then, the utility company announced Karen's house needed a full rewire before they'd restore power. She tried a generator, but it kept tripping the breaker. Her house roared like a construction site, the soundtrack to her downfall. The real twist? Because her theft registered on my solar output, I qualified for a $4,000 state green energy rebate. Karen destroyed my panels, tried to ruin my reputation, and paid for my next vacation. Sometimes karma's got a sense of humor. But the story didn't end. Karen started poisoning the well, accusing my panels of causing foundation issues, interfering with Wi-Fi, you name it. A couple neighbors stopped waving. Someone left an anonymous note. "Your tech toys are ruining our neighborhood." Instead of fighting back, I upgraded my security. Invisible IR cameras, motion sensors, microphones. First night, I caught her scattering nails on my driveway. Sprinklers blasted her as she ran. Clear footage, straight to the HOA and sheriff. She got a formal warning. She escalated, sabotaging a transformer, blacking out the whole street. Of course, she blamed my panels. I brought in a reporter for another news piece on HOA overreach and green energy. The next day, Karen hired some compliance consultant to photograph my house, sent me another violation notice, this time for solar glare pollution. I laughed, cited state law, and copied the authorities and the press. The county inspector, on another complaint, confided that Karen had accused her last neighbor of running an underground Wi-Fi transmitter. This was just her playbook. She started digging near my property line, looking for wires, caught on camera, busted by deputies. Next came the bureaucratic warfare: forged complaints, fake inspection notices, identity fraud with the city's permit system. I documented everything, got Mark involved, and the county finally slapped her with a restraining order. But she didn't quit. She kept filing complaints, sabotaged my insurance, tried to weasel her way back onto the HOA board, even staged fake community cleanups to rehab her image. One night, she tried to install a new illegal line. My system caught her. The sheriff arrested her again. Probation violation, utility tampering. Karen played the victim in court, but the judge wasn't buying it. She got probation, more restrictions. Then, one night, my system went dark. Someone clipped the grounding wire, a dangerous move. Checked the footage, wiped clean. Mark said, "She's not going to stop until she feels she's won." That's when I decided to make her the main character in her own downfall. We set a sting. My reporter friend Jenna posed as a compliance contractor. Karen, unable to resist, bragged about managing complaints for a small fee. We caught it all on camera, her trying to monetize power over the neighbors, admitting to harassment and sabotage. Deputies moved in quietly, arrested her on the porch. This time, the community saw the whole act. The HOA board axed her contracts. The county revoked her ability to file anonymous complaints. The neighborhood let out a breath it had held for a year. Even then, little ghosts lingered. Karen left behind a signal logger in my junction box, which I finally found and smashed. The next day, my app logged a flicker of current from her house to mine. Maybe an accident. Maybe her weird way of saying goodbye. The bank foreclosed on her house, and the rumor mill swirled. But when a new neighbor moved in, a sharp, practical woman named Elena, who was actually an electrical engineer, things started to shift. Elena turned Karen's old place into a microgrid demo, rewiring everything, installing new panels. For the first time, the two houses across the street didn't fight, they cooperated. Our systems even talked sometimes, pinging each other across the grid. During the renovation, Elena found a hidden box in Karen's walls, her real HOA records. Page after page of surveillance, complaints, schemes. I didn't keep the notebook. We sealed it back inside the new walls, let the house remember her so we didn't have to. Now, on quiet evenings, the street glows. Kids play, panels hum, neighbors wave. I look at my app, see the power graph smooth and steady. Give, take, balance. Karen's gone, her shadow lingering only as a lesson. The circuit's finally closed. I guess that's what victory looks like. Not gloating, not revenge, just a cul-de-sac learning to breathe again. And hey, if you've ever tangled with an HOA dictator or had a neighbor try to run your life, let's hear your stories. Comment below. Was I right to fight back, or did I just fuel the feud? Where's the line between justice and obsession? Community's messy, but sometimes you have to stand your ground, because silence is nice, but peace, real peace, is earned.